She agreed to work for free to avoid the streets. Then a farmer made an incredible discovery. Mia stood at the edge of Mr. Thompson's farm, swallowing hard against the despair that choked her throat. The weeds thrived in the afternoon sun, mocking her with their tenacity. She had agreed to work for free, a desperate gamble to keep her and Lily out of a homeless shelter. The air was thick with worry, and the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her. What if she failed? What if the townspeople were right? The mere thought of those whispers, unfit, worthless, dug deep into her flesh. Mr. Thompson, the grizzled farmer with hands like leather, eyed her skeptically. She felt small, a single mother overwhelmed by the enormity of her situation. But when Lily's bright eyes shone with admiration as she watched her mother, a flicker of determination ignited within Mia. The softness of the sun felt like a silent oath, as if it whispered, "You will find your way." "What can I do?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "Just keep up," he replied, his tone gruff yet not unkind. As she got to work, the rhythm of her body mirrored the earth beneath her. Plowing, planting, there was something sacred in the act of nurturing life from the soil. Memories of her grandfather flooded back, igniting warmth in her chest. She recalls the way he explained the cycles of farming, the importance of seasons, patience, and hard work. Each seed planted sparked joy, yet the specter's shadow loomed. Those questions she tried to bury. Was she strong enough? Did she have the grit to turn their lives around? Days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise, a fragile hope began to flourish with each square inch of tilled earth. Yet the same townsfolk who whispered made their presence known, their disdain bubbling just beneath the surface. The wealthy businessmen scoffed at Mia, disdain clinging to their lips like the dust kicked up on gravel roads. Her resolve twisted into knots of anxiety, the whispers curdling into echoed doubts in her mind. Caught between two worlds, Mia felt the struggle of proving her worth against the tradition that anchored the town, demanding she carry the burden of being a single mother like a brand on her soul. She grappled with their disdain, each sidelong glance weighing heavier on her heart. "Can I really do this?" she thought, racing thoughts spiraling, leaving her breathless in moments of self-doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when the tension seemed unbearable, a conversation overheard about the land sent her heart plummeting. Whispers of hidden treasures beneath the soil twisted her thoughts. The farm, that precious dusty piece of earth, could hold secrets far more profound than her struggles. What if Mr. Thompson's land wasn't just a battleground against prejudices, but a launchpad into something bigger? What if her fight wasn't only for survival, but for something extraordinary? Mia's heart raced with the enormity of it all. What lay beneath the surface was a riddle, one that could either uplift her or drown her under the weight of conflict. And as resentment brewed within the town, gearing up to reject her existence, she felt an overwhelming urgency. The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. She couldn't stop now. She would dig deeper into the truth, pushing back against the tide that threatened to engulf her and Lily. The tension tightened around her throat like a noose, the question now more palpable than ever. Could she claim her place, or would the very soil that had begun to feel like home become the grave of her dreams? Mia's hands trembled as she knelt in the rich loam, each scoop of soil feeling like an excavation of not just earth, but of her deepest fears and aspirations. With each plant she nestled into the ground, she envisioned a life where she and Lily could thrive, not just survive. Yet that vision was continually shattered by whispers of doubt and disdain from the townsfolk. They saw her as an outsider, a reminder of failures they hoped to forget. The days passed with an exhausting intensity. Mia learned the rhythm of farm life, how seasons dictated work, how growth required patience. Yet the underlying tension in the town grew sharper, more tangible. Every scornful glance filled her with a queer mix of anger and determination. Fueled by a newly found grit, she refused to become the subject of their ridicule. She needed to prove to herself and to Lily that she could rise above this. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of gold and crimson, Mia overheard Mr. Thompson speaking with a visitor about the farm's history. He mentioned legends of lost treasures hidden beneath the roots of ancient trees, stories that could spark a citywide frenzy if uncovered. The words echoed in Mia's mind, intertwining with her visions of hope. Maybe there was a way to turn this place into something that could elevate them above scorn. What if I explore this idea? She pondered, strategizing ways to merge her newfound passion with the quest for fortune. The thought of a treasure felt preposterous, yet the essence of it excited her spirit like never before. She decided she would investigate, learn everything she could about the land. Mr. Thompson, she began, a renewed determination sharpening her voice. I want to help with more than just the planting and harvesting. I need to understand the land entirely, its history, its secrets. Could we search for clues? Clues? To what? He replied, confused yet intrigued by her tenacity. The land you talk about, the tales of something buried beneath. What if we can uncover something valuable? I've been doing some reading. She felt the enthusiasm pulse through her. Mr. Thompson arched an eyebrow, a flicker of respect dancing in his eyes. You want to dig deeper? You know that kind of work isn't just for the weak-hearted. She nodded resolutely. I'm ready for anything. With newfound support, Mia plunged into her research, a mix of historical texts and folklore from the town's past. The deeper she delved, the more she discovered about the town itself, how legends shaped its identity, how the land was intertwined with its people's lives. Her thirst for knowledge became an unquenchable fire. Each late-night study session pulled her closer to understanding not just the potential hidden under the soil, but the hidden strengths and talents within herself. The following week saw her morph from a hapless worker into an aspiring expert of the land. She became attuned to the patterns of the fields, the stories etched in the rustling leaves, and the whispers of the soil. Through this exploration, she also gained confidence. Each breakthrough in her understanding reflected her own potential for growth. But the whispers of discontent grew louder, buzzing through the streets. When Mia finally planned a small gathering to share her discoveries, an effort to unite the townspeople through a newfound appreciation of their heritage, she hadn't expected the backlash. The ridicule deepened. Look at her, they whispered. What does she know about our history? Now, with walls closing in, Mia faced a daunting realization. She was not only battling her past, but every challenge of the present. Her courage was about to face its true test, and she was left wondering, could she confront the very people who had marginalized her? Was she willing to risk everything to claim her space and her truth? As she prepared for the confrontation ahead, a question lingered like a shadow in her mind. Would the farm become a sanctuary, or would its soil yield to the weight of her fears? The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields as Mia stood before the assembled townsfolk. An uneasy tension crackled in the air, mingling with the scents of fresh earth and burgeoning crops. She had expected skepticism, but the vitriol of their disdain struck deeper than she anticipated. The townspeople gathered, arms crossed and faces etched with scorn, as if her very presence threatened to unearth not just secrets of the land, but their own buried insecurities. Mia's heart pounded as she fought to steady her resolve. Each whispered remark and derisive laugh echoed painfully, reminding her of what she had overcome. She took a deep breath, mentally rehearsing her message. This gathering was about more than treasure. It was a chance to show them who she really was, not just the outsider they labeled her as. She was determined to connect the emotional heritage of the land they cherished with her own burgeoning sense of belonging. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice wavering slightly, but then firmed with conviction. "I know some of you might not believe that I have the right to speak about this land, but I've spent weeks researching its history, our history." A few eyebrows raised, but most remained skeptical. She pressed on, her words gaining momentum as she unfolded tales of the ancient trees, the secrets of the soil, and the lives intertwined in the very riches they claimed to hold dear. As she spoke, Mia's excitement filled the air, dispelling the oppressive discontent. Yet she felt the familiar tightening of fear, weighing her words against the expectations she felt hanging like a dark cloud. Then it happened. A voice from the back broke through her narrative. "And what do you intend to find?" A sneer accompanied the question, dismissive yet curious. Mia locked eyes with the speaker, a man who had always been part of the town. She sensed beneath the bravado a flicker of uncertainty. "I want to find what connects us all," she replied sharply, her voice gaining strength. "The stories we haven't told, the values we assumed we abandoned. I'm not here to overshadow anyone. I just want to unearth potential together." She watched as the crowd stirred, caught between their preconceived misconceptions and the authenticity she offered. Was this the moment? Mia knew she needed to pivot, to take the reins, and use this confrontation to redefine herself. What if we could uncover something that could reignite our town's spirit? Murmurs began to ripple among the crowd, and they seemed to waver in their hostility. For the first time, curiosity flickered in some of their eyes. Mia pressed on, drawing them into her vision of excavation, not just of soil, but of communal identity. "We have legends here, untold stories hidden deep in our roots. Imagine what we could accomplish together." But as she reveled in this fleeting moment of connection, a darker realization crept back in, a looming threat that had yet to reveal itself. Would they rally behind her vision, or would they turn away, retreating behind their walls of insignificance? The moment reached a precipice when Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "It seems some are willing to lead us into the unknown." He glanced at Mia, his expression inscrutable. "But where will that unknown take us? And at what cost?" Mia's heart raced. This was it. She felt the weight of the town's gaze bearing down on her, the very people she longed to accept her. The stakes had risen. She needed to not only confront their fears, but to wrest her own demons into the light. Could she present herself boldly enough to claim her narrative, or would she dissolve back into the shadows? As their eyes converged on her, the final question echoed in her mind. Could she bring forth their lost treasures, only to find her truth buried amongst them? The very essence of who she was teetered on the edge of revelation, waiting for the moment to break free. The confrontation had begun, and the outcome was still uncertain. Mia took a deep breath, letting it fill her lungs while she fought against the frantic beating of her heart. She glanced around, gauging the faces in the crowd, the uncertainty mixed with doubt, but also a hint of something that flickered like a dying ember of hope. The moments stretched. She needed to fill the silence with courage, not vacillation. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice steadier now, "the unknown may be daunting, but isn't it also where the potential lies? The very essence of discovery is that risk. The cost is not just in what we might find, but in what we choose to do with that knowledge." She felt the weight of her own words. It was not merely a response to his challenge, but also a resolution for herself. To confront what lay ahead, Mia had to let go of the safety of her past self. She scanned the crowd again, allowing them to see the conviction in her eyes, daring to bear her vulnerability and strength simultaneously. "What if we break through our fears together?" she continued, invigorated by a newfound determination. "What if the treasure we dig isn't gold or relics, but our shared purpose and connection? What if it's the stories we uncover in this soil that can help heal the fractures among us?" The murmurs grew louder, excitement mingling with skepticism. But Mia felt a shift. The tide had turned slightly, driven by her willingness to expose both her ambition and aspirations while inviting them into the fold. She was no longer just the outsider. Her identity was merging with theirs through this shared journey. As the skepticism lingered in the air, her mind raced ahead to the implications. Had she inadvertently invited them into an exploration that could unravel their fears or even challenge their very essence? But the thought electrified her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She derived strength from the tension, understanding that conflict could either stifle or galvanize. "Mia, you talk of stories," came another voice from the periphery, a familiar one from her research days. "But what are you willing to sacrifice? How would you truly fit in here?" The personalized attack hit close to home, but rather than recoil, Mia seized the moment. "I've already sacrificed a lot by returning and standing here," she replied, her voice firm but tempered with sincerity. "Time away taught me the value of roots, not just as a metaphor but literally. I want to cultivate a place where we all feel viable, not just surviving but thriving." A collective intake of breath rippled through the gathered group. She noticed nods, unsure yet curious, a hesitance to embrace broader hopes, but an undeniable intrigue at her honesty. Her spirit soared as she envisioned her dreams unfurling alongside theirs. With resolution, she told them about the forgotten archives detailing the area's history, her plans to explore local folklore, and the engagement she envisioned. Each word was layered with the challenge of understanding their fears, mixing in her hope of redemption. Yet, a shadow loomed behind the excitement, whispering reminders of past failures and potential rejection. Could she maintain this momentum without growing overconfident? The smiles flickering in the crowd fueled her, but also lit a fire of fear within. "Let's make this discovery one step at a time," she urged, her heart racing. "But I want your voices, I want your fears, your memories, your stories. Will you journey with me, risk the unknown we face together?" But the responses remained murky, hovering between acceptance and fear. As she stood there, poised at the brink of a breakthrough, an uninvited thought crossed her mind. Was she truly prepared to dive into this unknown when shards of her own identity still felt fractured? Suddenly, a strong voice broke through her reverie. "Mia, what if we need to start digging in our backyards to truly see the histories that bind us?" Her heart skipped, the realization washing over her. This was not merely about the excavation of the land, but also the unearthing of personal truths. The walls around her began to crack, and she felt the call to not only guide them, but also embrace her own journey. The stakes had elevated. She could no longer afford to doubt. She leaned forward, a fierce determination brewing within her. The potential for transformation pulsated around her as she wondered, would she discover her own buried treasures as they unearthed shared histories? The foundations were laid, but every path revealed could branch into light or darkness. As she readied to weave her narrative deeper into theirs, the fire ignited within. Was she willing to face the next monumental revelation awaiting her? Mia exhaled slowly, the tension still palpable in the air. As a hush fell over the crowd, she realized they were not only waiting for her next words, but also scrutinizing her resolve. Each face was a mirror reflecting her internal struggle, and their uncertainty began to seep into her consciousness. Could she really lead them on this uncharted path while navigating the labyrinth of her own doubts? Maybe what binds us is buried deeper. The words escaped her, almost without thought, encapsulating the essence of her growing determination. But the internal dialogue didn't cease. The fear of inadequacy loomed large, thoughts spinning around the notion that she might not be enough to steer this collective endeavor. Yet as she looked into the crowd, she saw sparks of curiosity igniting within their eyes. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were ready to engage with the layers of themselves that had long been dormant. Was this what she had signed up for? Not merely a historical excavation, but an exploration into the heart of human connection. A gentle but firm voice broke through her contemplation. "You talk of digging our pasts, but what if that unearths wounds too raw?" The question lingered, heavy in the air. Mia felt the weight of vulnerability pressing against her, a reminder that while she sought to foster growth, she also had to prepare herself for the backlash of buried pain. "I understand," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear rising within her. "But sometimes the things that hurt us the most are the very stories we must share to heal. Our scars could lead to understanding, and through understanding, we can build a foundation of strength." That idea took root in her mind. The juxtaposition of healing and pain sat side by side in her explorations of the past. Wasn't that the very essence of human existence? She couldn't shy away from fear and pain if she was to advocate for others to embrace theirs. Was she ready to facilitate that confrontation? The crowd had grown quieter, reflecting her inner turmoil. Their expectation hung like a cloud, promising either torment or redemption. Her resolve intensified. She had to challenge their fears, as well as her own. "What if we dedicate space to share these stories? Each one of you holds a key to our collective past, and your truth deserves to be heard." A hand shot up from the back, an older gentleman with cautious eyes. "And what if we don't want to dig? Some treasures are better left buried." His doubt echoed through her mind, fortifying her resolve as she recognized a familiar worry. What if the turning point toward discovery peeled away layers she wasn't ready to expose? Taking a moment, she absorbed the sentiment. "You're right, not everyone is ready," she acknowledged. "And that's okay. This journey of ours isn't about forcing anyone to unearth their burdens. It's about the choice. Together we'll create a safe space where the pace is set by you." Her words hung in the air, a delicate bridge between fear and possibility. She knew the risk of sharing her own vulnerabilities alongside theirs. As their leader, an implicit expectation loomed that she should have it all figured out. But what if she didn't? Was navigating the ambiguity itself a roadmap for their collective journey? A shiver of excitement coursed through her. The intricacies of human experience could weave together a tapestry of resilience. Each unearthing could herald a discovery not just of shared history, but of newfound strength she hadn't realized was dormant within her. "Let's not rush," she said firmly, grounding herself in the moment. "Let's take the time needed to explore both what we uncover and what we leave be." The air crackled with anticipation. Questions hung unasked but palpable. Would her vulnerability inspire connection or haunt her with shadows of her inadequacies? Mia felt the tipping point approaching, the moment of truth drawing near where she would have to decide just how vulnerable she was willing to be with herself and others. Revelations awaited her just beyond the horizon. What if, in opening her own wounds, she unearthed not only their shared stories, but also her own buried strengths? With that thought, she felt an urge rising within her. There were choices to be made, paths to choose from, and hidden capabilities waiting to be discovered. Did she have the courage to confront the remnants of her past as intimately as she wished to explore theirs? As she gazed into the crowd, one thought anchored itself fiercely in her mind. The moment of transformation was not a distant aspiration, it was dancing on the precipice of her current reality. What emerged now hinged on one pivotal decision. Was she ready to dive into the depths of both her past and theirs? Mia's pulse raced as she surveyed the faces of those in front of her, each filled with anticipation and silent questions. The weight of their expectations pressed heavily upon her, urging her toward a pivotal reckoning. It was not merely about facilitating sharing, but about creating a sanctuary for secrets that lay dormant under layers of time and pain. She took a deep breath, channeling that restless energy into words. "Let's not just share stories, let's venture into why they matter. What do they teach us about ourselves?" This appeal ignited a flicker of hope within her. Her purpose regained clarity. Perhaps she could indeed guide them through this tangled web of experiences, but doubt lingered like an unwelcome shadow. With each spoken syllable, she confronted her own limitations as a leader. Would vulnerability translate into strength for them? Mia felt the churning of unresolved fears within her, battling against the growing determination to carve a path forward. The paradox of her position, leading others while teetering on the edge of her own self-doubt, was becoming increasingly clear. As she tuned into the nuances of the crowd's reactions, an embers of courage beckoned her. Maybe she needed to be more than their facilitator. Perhaps she had a deeper role to play, a catalyst of sorts. What if she shared her own fears, her own haunting past? Would that unlock the courage in them to do the same? Mia closed her eyes momentarily, sketching a mental map of her childhood fears that still occasionally seeped into her thoughts, the shadows of inadequacy that lurked behind every challenge. When a hand arose in the crowd again, this time from a woman with tears glistening in her eyes, she felt an urgent call to action. Was this connection what she had been searching for? "Can you share something from your own past?" the woman asked, her voice trembling. This direct inquiry, piercing and intimate, sent a cascade of possibilities flooding through Mia's mind. Could she bare her soul to guide them on their journey? Her heart raced at the very thought, but as she looked again at the woman, hope and fragility intertwined around her expression, something shifted within Mia. "What if," she began, her voice steady despite the rapid beat of her heart, "what if I start by sharing a moment that shaped who I am today, just one truth? Perhaps that will give us all the courage to step into our own uncertainties together." The energy in the space transformed, charged with anticipation and the rawness of vulnerability. Mia felt this was an extraordinary moment, pushing her toward the forefront of self-discovery. She hadn't planned to reveal so much, but maybe it was now or never. Gathering herself, she dove into a memory that had long been hidden behind walls of stoic resilience. "Once, I was on the brink of losing myself in the chaos of my own insecurities. I felt like a failure, trapped in an identity that didn't feel like mine. I struggled to articulate what I needed until I uncovered a profound truth. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength. As the words spilled from her, Mia noted the attentiveness in the room. Eye contact deepened, breaths synchronized. She gained momentum, realizing she was no longer just speaking, she was igniting something. With each revelation, she sensed the unburdening of weight from both her own shoulders and those of her audience. Yet, even amidst this surge of connection and catharsis, a pit of fear gnawed at her insides. What if her honesty only revealed how unprepared she was? What if it invited scrutiny instead of acceptance? Would this expose her to judgment, or lead to a newfound courage binding them together? As Mia wrestled internally with these swirling thoughts, a striking clarity emerged. She needed to create a pathway for authentic engagement, not just for them, but for herself as well. The complexity of human experience beckoned her, lifting her beyond her previous limitations. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "As we share our truths, we'll learn to navigate the tangled heartache and redemption of our identities." Here, at this juncture of her journey, Mia felt the exhilarating rush of commitment balancing on a knife edge of fear and possibility. Could she transform not only her own narrative, but forge connections that turned into collective strength? With that thought, a new urgency emerged within her. Transformative choices lay ahead, waiting to be embraced. What revelations about herself awaited in this shared experience? And would the bravery she found be enough to sustain the bond she sought to establish with others? Mia stood at the precipice of her vulnerability, her heart drumming a rapid beat as she felt the weight of expectation shift. Was she truly ready to explore the intricate tapestry of her past? The moment hung heavy in the air, pregnant with the potential for discovery, not just for her audience, but for herself. As she surveyed the faces turned toward her, Mia noticed a shift in the room's energy. The warmth of shared experience filled the spaces between them, wrapping around her like a protective cloak. She wasn't merely recounting her story. She was inviting others to engage with their own histories, unlocking what had lain dormant for so long. Yet the gravity of her role tightened its grip, and a familiar wave of dread ebbed at her confidence. What if she stumbled? What if her truths fell flat in the tender hearts of those listening? Pushing against the swell of uncertainty, she remembered her commitment. This wasn't just a moment of catharsis, it was a journey toward growth, both for her and for them. "I remember the day I first tried to step out of my own shadow," she continued, the words finding their way through the cracks of her tentative facade. "It was a day when I realized that sharing my truth could shatter the chains that held me back." The quiet acknowledgement that flickered on her audience's faces fueled her resolve. Each nod, each slight lean in their posture sent a ripple of warmth through her chest, buoying her with the realization that vulnerability indeed connects. With every revelation, she felt herself stepping onto previously uncharted terrain, ready to confront the aspects of her identity that had long been pushed aside. Challenges lay ahead though. Doubt crept in uninvited. Was she truly equipped to embolden others? What if her journey through those darkest moments revealed only her inadequacies? Ignoring those thoughts, Mia pressed on. It's in the moments of discomfort and vulnerability that we find our strength. I stood at the crossroads of fear and courage, and I chose to take the first step despite the uncertainty gasping at my heels. A collective silence enveloped them, thick with an unspoken understanding. Mia saw it reflected in their eyes, recognition of shared pain, a sense of profound alignment. Yet there was her own voice still whispering discord, recounting the inadequacies she felt even in this fleeting moment of assurance. It was unsettling how easily her spiraling insecurities emerged in tandem with her blossoming confidence. She decided then that honesty was no longer a matter of choice but necessity. "I am scared too," she confessed, a hint of emotion catching in her throat. "I question whether I hold the right answers to lead us. But perhaps it's not about possessing the answers. Perhaps it's about embarking on this journey together." As she spoke, Mia caught a glimpse of herself reflected in the eyes of her audience, a mosaic of hope, fear, and struggle. Was it possible that in facing her own fears, she could inspire them to confront theirs? The question loomed larger than life, protruding from the murky depths of her mind. Mia inhaled deeply, feeling energy surge through her, igniting a flame of hope. Each revelation she shared forged a deeper connection, invigorating her spirit and fortifying her resolve. She was not merely leading, she was participating in a raw and unfiltered exchange of life experiences. Yet, as the discussion deepened, an underlying tension hung in the air. What truths would surface next? Could she push through the trepidation, bringing to light stories that lay buried? The thought paralyzed her momentarily, even as her heart raced at the prospect of collective healing. As Mia prepared to navigate that uncharted territory, a new voice broke into the growing silence, this time an assertive man, his brow etched with inquiry. What happens if we unearth something we've long buried, something that shakes us to our core? Are we prepared to face that? His question hung in the air, a formidable challenge, triggering a cascade of uncertainty that drifted back into her mind, clawing at the edges of her newfound resolve. She could sense the gravitas of the moment, felt the weight of not only her journey, but the journeys of those surrounding her. What lay ahead was not just personal revelation, but a true test of collective resilience. Determined to confront the depths of their narratives, Mia quelled her doubt. I believe together we can. We may discover things that unsettle us, but with respect for one another, we can transform pain into power. With that declaration, Mia embarked deeper into the exploration of vulnerability and strength, ready to carve a path where others might follow. Could this shared experience forge a collective resilience that transcended doubt? As each connection became a thread binding them closer, she felt the tension build. What new discoveries awaited within these fragile conversations? As the audience processed Mia's resolve, a perceptible shift took root. Discomfort mingled with curiosity. She had trembled in those uncertain moments, yet the grip of anxiety was beginning to loosen, replaced by an unexpected surge of clarity. It was as if participating in this communal exchange had forged a new determination within her, propelling her to navigate even the roughest terrains. Taking a steadying breath, Mia leaned into the vulnerability, channeling the quiet strength that lingered just beneath the surface. With each step into deeper waters, she realized she was not simply unearthing her own buried truths. She was giving voice to those whose stories had remained silent. The challenges ahead were palpable, yet they felt less like insurmountable obstacles and more like necessary trials. I want to talk about shame, she announced, her voice firmer now. The kind that grips you and twists your perspective. I've battled with it, believing I was unworthy or undeserving. As she spoke, the room fell into a hushed reverence. Shadows of recognition flitted across the faces around her. This was not just her struggle, but theirs as well. Mia's thoughts sharpened, focusing on how to articulate the knot of emotion that had confined her for so long. Remembering the comfort of sharing her truths, she began to unravel her experience with shame. There were moments, she recalled, when I was convinced my failures defined me, times I held back from pursuing my dreams because I felt less than others. As the confessions dripped from her lips like drops of rain on dry ground, she watched her audience shift, their postures softening as they moved from passive listeners to active participants. In their silence, she felt that they too were unearthing long-dormant notions of self-doubt and fear. Gradually, Mia invited them to reflect. What are the narratives you've allowed to shape your identity? What chains of shame have kept you hostage? Her heart raced as she simultaneously feared the answers and yearned to illuminate them. Then she saw it, a spark of courage flickering in one young woman who had been nodding quietly. With a timid yet resolute voice, she began to share how she felt trapped in a cycle of comparison, struggling to step beyond the shadows cast by her peers. That singular moment catalyzed a ripple effect. One story reverberated into another, igniting threads of honesty that quickly wove through the room. Mia's mind whirled, analyzing the interplay of vulnerability now unfolding. Each raw revelation seemed to peel back layers not just from their shared experiences, but from her own psyche as well. She recalled how deeply the notion of inadequacy had infiltrated her thoughts, and how confronting it had become a catalyst for growth. Then an unsettling thought surfaced. Did she truly have the capacity to guide others through their own confrontations with self-judgment? The authority that burgeoned within her began to feel precarious, unsteady. Could she handle the weight of these collective truths while continuing to uncover her own? With a tremor in her heart, Mia spoke once more, attempting to ground herself. We are not defined by our pasts or by the narratives we've accepted. We can redefine the stories we tell ourselves. Let's embrace the discomfort together. It doesn't have to lead to despair. It can ignite change. As the dialogue deepened, Mia noticed the room pulsating with an energy that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Shared truths cascaded into the atmosphere, tangling with the threads of hope and fear. As connections intensified, so did the realization that the collective might bear burdens far heavier than her own. And yet, the quiet ember of courage flickered brightly amidst the fear. She could almost sense the path forming in front of her, a chance not just to share, but to create a legacy of resilience and newfound purpose. In that moment, a deeper understanding breached the surface of her consciousness. The unfolding revelations were not merely fabrications of pain, but threads of possibility that could stitch together a narrative of empowerment. But just as clarity softened her heart, a sudden reminder flickered through her mind like a warning siren. The fear she had worked so hard to alleviate was not gone. It was simply lying in wait, ready to challenge her next step. What would happen when buried emotions, ones deep enough to unsettle even her strongest convictions, decided to claw their way back into the light? Mia recognized she was standing on the brink of something transformative. But for the journey to flourish, she needed to confront the deepest shadows of her own making. And with that realization, she felt a steep cliff await, ready to plunge into the endless depths of her uncharted emotional landscape. Mia stepped back into the familiar comfort of her small apartment, the walls adorned with art that echoed her mixed emotions. Alone now, the energy that buzzed around the group lingered in her mind, both exhilarating and daunting. It was a stark contrast to the solitude that often engulfed her. She placed her purse on the table and sank into the worn-out couch, the cushions swallowing her momentarily. What had begun as a simple act of sharing had unraveled a cascade of feelings. The weight of collective stories pressed down on her, each voice a reminder of her own insecurities. The resolve that had felt so bold in front of the audience now wavered as the silence of her apartment closed in. Confronting shame was a communal effort, but what about the individual paths forged through such discussions? Mia stared at the blank wall where a clock ticked steadily, each second morphing into an anchor that pulled her deeper into contemplation. The discussions had not just been an exploration of vulnerability, they had stirred the deep-seated fears she thought she had navigated. She could recall clearly the echoes of judgment she had anticipated, the critical voice that reiterated her inadequacies. It was time to dissect those thoughts, to break their grip. Suddenly, her phone vibrated against the coffee table, the incessant buzzing ushering her back into reality. A message from her old mentor, Sam, punctured the stillness. "We should meet. Haven't seen you in a while." She hesitated, a mix of hope and trepidation swirling inside her. Sam always managed to see through her defenses, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that kind of scrutiny. But the notion of reconnecting ignited a flame of curiosity. Perhaps he held insights she hadn't yet uncovered about herself. She tapped out a reply, agreeing to meet the following day. After sending the message, the gravity of her decision settled heavily on her chest. This meeting promised potential exposure, not just to Sam's perspective, but to her own ongoing internal battle. It felt like standing on the edge again, ready to dive into truths she had skirted around for too long. Was she truly prepared for that? In the coming hours, as night enveloped her apartment, Mia journaled furiously. Thoughts spilled onto the pages, her reluctance to confront her emotional shackles fully, her admiration for the authenticity of others, and the nagging sense that remaining stagnant in her comfort zone would only perpetuate her cycle of fear. Each stroke of the pen felt like a small declaration of independence from her past. As she revisited memories of her upbringing, she recognized the influence of their narratives, how they wrapped around her identity like an old tattered blanket. Moments she would have normally pushed aside emerged as critical junctions, shaping her self-perception. Despite their gravity, the act of writing liberated her. With the fog of uncertainty slowly lifting, Mia realized that her journey was not solely about guiding others, but also about seeking clarity for herself. Yet, underlying her sense of empowerment was a persistent question. Would meeting Sam unravel her newfound perspective or challenge it further? Would sharing those pages of her life allow another to illuminate her path, or would the confrontation deepen her dilemma? Tomorrow loomed like a curtain waiting to rise on a stage filled with unresolved tension. She understood that stepping into that space with Sam meant shedding more layers than she anticipated. As she closed her notebook, the thrill of discovery surged again within her, a promising swell of courage. So many emotions and choices lay in ambush, mingling with the unresolved. Mia felt a shift, an anticipation that something significant would unfold. What was it she would learn about herself once she faced this new chapter with courage? Would the discoveries propel her forward or invite a deeper reckoning with her shadows? In the quiet of her apartment, the question burned brighter than ever. Tomorrow not only had to reveal answers, but unleash the very potential she had only begun to touch, if she was brave enough to face it. Mia stood on the edge of Mr. Thompson's farm, eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun painted the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink. She marveled at how far she had come from the depths of uncertainty that once overshadowed her life, a single mother grasping at the straws of survival. Those heights now shimmered with a promise as she felt the land beneath her feet vibrate with potential. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. The town had gathered for the unveiling of both her research and their future, together. She turned to her audience, a mix of skepticism and expectation reflected in their eyes. She had faced judgment before, but this time, a newfound confidence radiated from her being, the confidence born of clarity and growth. The past few months of digging deeper had unearthed layers of strength she had never known. Mia felt solid in her own skin, a transformative shift from the anxious worker she had once been. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steady and commanding. "I stand here not just as Mia, the farmer's aide, but as a voice for the untold stories that this land holds, stories that connect us all." The whispers and furtive glances were still present, but they were different now, tinged with curiosity rather than disdain. Mia continued, "I've spent months poring over the history of our town, uncovering treasures not just in the soil but in the truth of our past." She felt the warmth of recognition envelop her. This was her moment to shine, not in spite of her journey, but because of it. With each word, she wove together tales of the land intertwined with those of its people. She spoke of resilience, of hardships, and the unity that could stem from understanding. Every story shared was not just an acknowledgement of the town's history, but also a celebration of collective triumph over adversity. As she laid each story bare, she watched the skepticism in the crowd transform into intrigue, slowly replaced by a burgeoning sense of camaraderie among them. In that metamorphic moment, she felt the boundaries of her past dissolve. Gone were the unrelenting whispers of unfit and worthless. Today, she wasn't just seeking acceptance. She wasn't waiting for validation. Today, she stood as a respected contributor in her community. The lingering doubts that once threatened to suffocate her ambitions had become mere echoes of a past she had conquered. The highlight of her presentation came when she announced the first collaborative venture, a community event focused not merely on agricultural successes, but on unearthing the shared experiences of their lives. "Let's hold a day where we dig together, not just for crops, but for stories that have shaped us," she proposed. "We'll celebrate our heritage, creating a renewed sense of belonging for everyone." As she spoke, Mia noted the shifts in her audience. Some faces softened, reflecting a growing willingness to embrace the unfamiliar. Conversations ignited among the townspeople, enthusiasm sparking hope. Perhaps together they could acknowledge their past and reshape their narratives. Realization flowed through Mia. She was merely a vessel to ignite their transformation. In that moment, her own metamorphosis solidified. She had achieved more than personal survival. She had conquered her self-doubt, emerged from the shadows, and established herself as a leader among equal souls seeking redemption. As she watched the townsfolk mingle, laughter spilling into the air, Mia recognized her journey had been not just about survival, but about thriving. Not just for herself, but for her daughter and everyone around her. The tangible excitement was unmistakable, rippling through the air like electricity. Mia understood now that her path had always been illuminated by the very doubts she had wrestled. She had faced them, embraced them like old friends, and transformed them into her guiding light. Walking through the crowd, she felt a sense of belonging wash over her, an achievement not defined by titles or accolades, but the intangible connection enveloping them. She savored the moment deeply. The whispers of worthlessness that once resided in her heart had been replaced with the undeniable knowledge of her competence, her voice now an essential part of the town's legacy. In that pivotal hour, Mia's essence melded with the history of the land she had worked tirelessly on. She was not just a single mother struggling against prejudice. She was a beacon of hope, a testament to resilience. She had achieved recognition, not only equipping herself but others to confront their own fears and insecurities. And as she looked toward the future, she realized that anything was possible. Now, as a proud protector of both her heritage and the spirit of her community, Mia turned back to the horizon, contemplating the deeper treasures still hidden beneath the earth. Mia raised her arms, embracing the sunlight with a radiant smile, and knew this was not the end, but just the beginning of a journey filled with shared experiences, lessons unlearned, and connections that would last a lifetime. You need to subscribe now to see more stories of profound transformation. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible journey. Comment below your thoughts and theories about this ending. Together we are creating an empowering space for everyone.